Everyone's chasing color e-ink right now, but they're all taking different bets. Amazon doubled down on reading with their second addition to the Kindle Colorsoft lineup. Remarkable has a slower, albeit more vibrant Gallery 3 tech. And then there's this Note Air 5C. It's faster, it has the Google Play Store, and it's arguably the most versatile 10-inch tablet on the market. After 6 months of daily use, it's clear. While others are building digital notebooks, Boox is still building a full-blown e-ink workstation. But is the added power of Android 15 worth the trade-offs in battery and simplicity? Let's find out. Now, getting to the design of the Note Air 5C, it is very sleek. And one of the nice things is this chin on the side here actually gives you a little holding place when you're taking notes or if you're reading like that. And if you're a lefty, it'll rotate that way so you can hold it with your right hand and take notes with your left hand. Also, if you slot it into some sort of keyboard deck, then having the chin is good because you won't lose any screen real estate when it's docked in there like that. One of the things I would have liked to have seen would have been some grip for the backside so that when you put it on a table, it doesn't slide around. I generally end up using it in the Folio because of that reason. And the power button also does double as a fingerprint sensor, or you can use a security pin to get into it. Now, getting into the Folio, it magnetically slots in here. And new this year, they have a charging port on the side that's accessible from the Folio. That used to not be the case, so you either had to pull it out or it's a little awkward to charge when you're using it. But there are some good and bad things about the Folio. So the nice thing is that it has an included trifold stand. So you can do it vertically like that or horizontally like this. I will say though, it does have a slight angle, but I've never found that to be an issue when using it. One thing that could have been improved is that when the Folio is on the back, it is a little loose here. I personally don't think it's a big issue, but it's something that they could have had a magnet here and easily remedied. I also do have the optional keyboard case here, which I'll get to a little later in the video. Now, this is my first Boox device, and I do find the flap to be a little odd. It just becomes a little cumbersome because you will end up losing the pen if you don't have it on. They really need to implement the indent where it can stow away, kind of like the Remarkable or the new Kindle Scribe has. This just becomes a little bit of a nuisance in general. I do really like the color. The black and brown combo do go very well together, which leads us right into the new pen here. One thing with the screen is you probably will want to rub it with microfiber. Right out of the box, the pen does make a little bit of a squeaky noise, but that can be remedied just by wiping the screen, and then I've never had an issue with it. There is a thin film protector on here, which actually is nice because these pens are EMR, which is electromagnetic resonance from Wacom, and that does mean that you can use other pens with it. So I can use any of my supernote pens on it with no impact. And I've talked to some people in the E Ink community, and they say that the screen protector can deal with ceramic nibs just fine. But back to the new Boox pen. It is nice that it has a matte coating now. It's got pretty good grip on it. The one downside being that the magnets here, it doesn't seem like there is a actual firm place for it to stay. There's kind of two positions that it can rest in, and the top position ends up pressing the power button. I'm sure if you've seen videos on this device, you know that already, and that is a big mishap for the pen. I'm a little torn on this new pen. I like writing with it, but I end up not traveling around with it. I've actually had this pop out. You see, I'm missing a tip right now. So I don't really take this thing out of the house. I just kind of leave it on my desk. And when I do use the Note Air at home, then I use this. But there is one dedicated position that it slots in there. So when I move around or I'm on the go with the Note Air 5C, I end up using the Pen 2 Pro that they have, which also has an eraser, which I like. The other one doesn't. This slots right here, and then you can close it like that. And it's just cleaner. I think the pen cap's like a nice idea in theory, but I don't know how I would use it because anywhere you're clipping it, it's likely to get loose, and that just makes it a little useless in my opinion. But with the EMR pens, the nice thing is you don't get any wobble like you do with the active styli that we're starting to see on some of these devices, like even the bigger brother of this device, the Tab XC, has an active stylus. Now, really quickly, some of the accessories that I use with the Note Air 5C, besides the two pens that I got that are from Boox, I use this Dr. Grip Wacom pen. It has a little bit of a harder tip, but it's a nice ergonomic pen, and I do like the clicky factor of it. Because these are a little adaptable, it can still hold the pen. I don't take it out of the house a lot like this because there's a potential it could slip out because it doesn't have magnets that actually attach to the Note Air 5C like the normal pens do. Then occasionally I'll use the supernote pens, any one of the 4 that I have. These have a little bit of a scratchier sound on it, but are still relatively smooth. Sometimes when I throw it in my bag, I'll have this anchor charger and I'll just pop it in here and then it's charging in my bag. This is USB-C, obviously, so I can use it with a lot of other devices as well. And then if I'm listening to stuff on Libby or Hoopla or MP3 files that I've downloaded, obviously you can use USB-C headphones, but if you do want a little bit better sound quality, these digital to analog converters allow you to plug pretty much any headphone in. I tend to use these QE ear IEMs on them, and you can get quite good sound quality on here. This one is a little bit cheaper. I'll link it below to a Shanling one. And then I also have a QE ears DAC like this. That makes for a pretty good listening experience when I plug in headphones. Now if I draw on here, I tend to use the Pen 2 Pro with a fuse grip on it, or the Supernote ceramic tip here with a grip as well. It's also nice having the micro SD slot here. You can see the device comes with 64 gigs, and then if I go to the disk, I have 512 in there. I'm not really going to talk about Boox because obviously as an Android device, this is a great e-reader. There are unlimited options of apps and things you can put on here. But I did see recently that they released something called the Tappy, which is kind of like a page turner that connects via Bluetooth and should be good on things like flights or something like that if you're reading at a bit of a distance. Getting into the screen, it definitely has improved brightness overall. I have it cranked pretty high right now, but it does max out at 100 nits, which is generally good because Kaleido is a little bit darker. You will likely want to have the brightness on most of the time unless you're out in direct daylight. But it's nice in the software. You know, I have 3 settings. So I have a soft one if I'm reading at night, and then I have a general bright one if I'm in a decently lit area, but I want a little bit more pop. And then if I'm in a pretty poorly lit environment, then I can go to the custom one, which cranks it a little bit more. You can see here, for example, a Kaleido 3 panel compared to a Gallery 3 panel is a little bit darker in general, but that's not necessarily to say it's any worse. The front lights tend to be brighter on these. Just note, if you do crank your brightness a lot, then you will diminish your battery by a little bit. But the place I enjoy using these the most is definitely under pretty good ambient lighting. So whether you're outside or just near a window, or you have good room lighting in general, then it tends to pop the most there. But that can be mimicked with the front light too. And if you see compared to Spectra 6.2, there aren't as many colors. There's only 4,000 levels of color here. For most use cases, it will be plenty to distinguish something in a chart or a PDF or something like that, or a comic or a colored book. And then if you scroll up from the bottom here, you do get the E Ink Wise section, and there's 3 nice modes for the refresh. There's HD, there's speed, and there's a new one called smooth. If you're scrolling around web pages or things like that, that can be nice, or even in Android apps. It is nice. You actually can watch video on here. I wouldn't highly recommend it. It is a little slower, obviously, and is more of an edge case. And I do think watching long videos does put strain on the longevity of these devices. So I'd use that more as an edge case and not something you're buying this to watch video on. But the cool thing about these speed modes is that it remembers it typically for the app. So if I'm looking at a comic or a book or a PDF, it will go into the HD kind of regal mode. And then if I go to YouTube, for example, it will go to the speed mode. And then if I'm on a web page, it will automatically go to the smooth. And it just kind of remembers those in the software, making it a little more hassle-free. You can see I'm just on YouTube. The microphone is right here. We're at about 50%. Now we'll go up to 100%. The microphones are on the bottom, so if you do rotate it, the sound will be coming significantly more from the left side. Now, as this is my first Boox device, I've been exploring the notes and how they work compared to some of these other E Ink devices. But in general, I do think it's pretty good. It has a host of features that some of them I'm still learning about. Some of the nice things in the notes that I really like using are the shapes. So there's lots of options here, like that. And you can move it, rotate, and shape filling is pretty cool. And then some cool AI features here are the auto perfect shapes and lasso recognition. You know, if I just do a shape like that, it'll recognize it. Let's say I just circle this, it'll auto detect that. So it's nice. On Supernote, you have to do the 2 fingers or 2 fingers on here, depending on how you customize it. On Remarkable, for example, you have to go into the lasso tool. That's just a nice convenience factor. And I like the ability to insert images too. So if you're building some sort of document and you just want to have relevant images, you can pull those from your gallery, or you can save them from the web and then pop them in and stuff like that. And then drawing on here I found to be pretty good in general. The accuracy is nice, and the ability to have a lot more built-in shapes than any of the other platforms is really cool. So you can do three-dimensional shapes, you can just do shape filling. So on this watch face that I'm working on, you can see a lot of the symmetry in there, or the shapes is really functional in the Boox platform. And then when I draw, I do like having layers, so it's nice that that is built in already. I love the fact that you have a lot of pen tool options here. You can see I have 5 right here, all set to different things in different colors. You can also do scribble to erase. I don't use that much. But then there's also AI text recognition. And then you have a lot of templates as well. You can import custom ones too, but there are some decent ones built in as well. And if you notice this little thing, this you can hover around, and then there are a lot of options that can just be brought up. You can also get rid of this if you want. You can move this toolbar as well. So like I mentioned earlier, if you're a lefty and you use it completely flipped, you could easily pop that to this side if you wanted to. And then there are some pretty nice PDF viewing modes. There is also text-to-speech ability, but I haven't found that the most useful. It does sound a little bit robotic, but by far my favorite kind of system or notes function in this is the ability to do split screen. So if I go here, there in the options, there's a split screen option. You can pull up a note here and then have a web page to do some research and take notes. I typically prefer it side by side like that, but that is really cool. I found that super useful on the plane because I can just have one device, preload some documents or some PDFs, and then just start taking notes and start formatting stuff the way I want it. And the screen area is usable like this with pinching and zooming. It basically equates to about an A6 size. So it's not really that limiting, and you can quickly resize it like that. So if you want the notes to be bigger, then you can do that right there. For the general UI overall, I think the Android skin is pretty good. On my S26 Ultra, I usually use Nova Launcher, but on this device, I find the stock skin to be pretty good. I like the little library and notes widgets here. And then on my main page here, I have the apps that I use the most. None of these apps are distracting. If there are any that I have that might be a little bit distracting, I put them on the second page here. And then I do have a general search bar here as well. Space Desk is nice for having it as a second monitor if there's something I want to read or just some files I want to be browsing while I'm doing something on my laptop screen. And then I really like the Libby and Hoopla apps. Being able to have audiobooks play on here with the speakers is nice. So I'll show you, here's a comic, and then we'll go to the Regal mode. You can see the quality of some of this stuff. It does a reflash every time, so there's no ghosting, so that the quality is the best it can be. Like most Kaleido, you can see there is some banding and pixelation in some of these images. You tend to not find that in comics, just more in actual images. You can see these look pretty fantastic here. And then another nice thing is in the Duolingo app, I have been brushing up on my Japanese. So you can see for written kanji, it is great for practicing stroke order and whatnot. Because it is an Android note taker or a tablet, then I would say just once in a while go into the bottom left there to your multitask view and then close the open apps. Because it is an Android reader, they could be running processes in the back and taking some battery life from you. So just do that once in a while. For battery life, I get about a couple days. You can also use this option here to protect the battery lifespan by limiting it to 80%. I have auto sleep set to 10 minutes, but that takes us into another thing with the actual screensaver. So this has been my favorite screensaver in general. It gives you a little calendar view and then gives you a real-time update. So it's nice as a little dashboard. As you can imagine, if this is updating, it is taking a little bit of power. So I feel like I definitely get some battery drainage just from that. You can obviously select your own image. There are some preset ones as well, and then a few other clock options. But one awesome feature is the transparency. So you'll see if I set that, and now if I lock the screen, it will just go into a mode where it shows the page you're looking at. So it doesn't matter what app or note you're looking at, it will just display that here. And then you won't really be using battery because it's E Ink. So when it auto defaults off at 10 minutes, it will just show what's on the screen. So here we have the optional keyboard folio, and you can see this is how it attaches the pogo pins here. Click in here, and then essentially you lift it like that, and there is only one docked position like this. There's a little bit of a lip on the bottom, and the keys do feel a tiny bit cramped just because it is a 10.3 inch device and not like the Tab XE where you get a more full-size keyboard. But obviously having that direct connection means that there will be minimal lag and you should have no connection interference issues. So I end up using this a lot to respond to YouTube comments. So chances are if you receive a reply from me, I'm probably typing on this device. I do use it for Gmail as well as a little bit of note taking. You can still use all the Android gestures when it's docked like this as well. The case almost doubles the thickness in general. Just for reference here, this is the Remarkable 2 type folio. And so you can see the difference in thickness there of the two. In my opinion, the Remarkable type folios are some of the best because it feels like a normal notebook. And then when you put it back like that, there's a rather special mechanism here that hides the keys behind. And then it becomes like that. And there's actually two different heights. So there's a low height and a high height. I think this is a design that a lot of these e-ink companies should follow. It's just a much cleaner design. And when I use this Remarkable 2 with the type folio case, it feels almost like a regular case. So it doesn't take up that much extra space and it's just a little bit heavier, but it does still feel like an e-ink notebook that I could use in this scenario. Whereas this feels very much like something you only use with the keyboard, right? There's no good way of having it. I guess you can kind of fold it on its back here, but then it has even more girth there, you can see. And if I'm writing on this, then I would just use the normal folio. And this device runs off of the battery of the Note Air 5C. It doesn't have a built-in battery of any sort. This is just for pass-through to the device because the USB-C is rather hindered down here, and so that's why they added that there. It is a little bit springy feeling, and it's not the most satisfying keyboard to type on. Sometimes I'd rather type on my Logitech keyboard where there's a little dock and I can put the Note Air 5C in there and connect via Bluetooth. So I'll link that below if you want to check that out too. But obviously if you're traveling, this would be better in that scenario. So we'll just do a quick typing comparison test of the sound here. As you can see, because this does have this chin, they were able to get a much wider keyboard in here. And the keys do feel significantly bigger on a similar size device. They're both 10.3 inches. If you'd like to see another color e-ink note taker, you can see that right here. Or if you're interested in just a black and white e-ink note taker, then you can check that out here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.